Louder with Crowder Studios, protected exclusively by Walther.
Shut down his channel. You have a problem with that, not gay Johnny?
No, Sensei.
No notifications. Oh, and sweep the leg.
It's 2 points. Russo, Lawrence, nothing. Ready? Fight!
Yeah! Get everybody back! Yeah!
Finish him!
Monetizing you in the morning. What?
Called Authentic African Dance. Because I watched Black Panther. I think that's how they did it.
Got your spear
I'm
knife
late to the party. I finally watched Black Panther this week, for those who are not Mug Club members, and I thought it was so laughably bad at parts. I understand why some people liked it, but I'm sitting there watching going, hold on a second. Here's a lady in traditional African garb with a spear on a Tesla. I don't...
It fits, come on.
And I am upset that I had friends recommend this to me. All right, we have a fantastic show today. We have Mr. Brexit Nigel Farage on the show. Boom.
Yes.
We have Owen Benjamin on the show. Boom.
Boom.
And then we have Lauren Southern on the show.
Kapow!
And of course, the premiere people just saw a continuation of Mug Club Kid.
Gonna be really good.
Gonna be a really good show. And next week we have Ralph Macchio, the real Ralph Macchio,
Really?
on the
Yeah.
show. A lot of
Not a
people say,
joke.
is it the
Somebody
real?
told me that.
Yeah, Ralph Macchio next week on the show.
Gosh, that's gonna be cool.
You're not invited. We're gonna have somebody else. He's gonna be in your seat. Matter of
He's
fact.
sitting in my own
Falling
bed.
on hard times.
Little bastard. I'm gonna keep
All right. And we're going to talk about, by the way, question of the day before we get in. Policy-wise, those who thought President Donald Trump would be a disaster, I had a bit of a wait-and-see attitude, but I will admit, policy-wise, I think I was wrong. I think the last week has been pretty damn good, the taxes. So I want to know, at what point do you admit that or do you say that you're wrong? Or what you think about President Trump at this point? Comment below. Also, we're coming up on 2 million subscribers pretty soon, so tell us how long you've been watching, listening, what it is that you'd like to see more, less, who knows. Producing with me in video studio, as always, is Jared, who is not gay. Follow me, not gay Jared. Meet us, Crowder, as long as we're not banned. With your photoshops, your comments, your videos, a mural.
Yeah. Mural's good, yeah. But speaking of things you need less of, I'm going to be on the top of that list. I can guarantee you.
I do not believe so.
My naked ass.
It's
is
going to be
be
my shekels from the Illuminati Jew meetings.
my naked ass and then my face.
Not in that order necessarily.
I fulfill my legal obligations, right? You didn't let me finish the statement. Legally, I'm bound, drawing conclusions. And at G. Morgan Jr., he's a sommelier. For those who don't know, he's going to be going for. You were telling me the other day that it's actually really hard to become.
It's hard to become a master sommelier. Only two.
Yeah, isn't it? Hey, Sven Computer, you ready with overlays?
Oh, wow.
Hold on, I'll go back to you. What's the wine of the day,
We
Gerald?
have Doubleback Cabernet.
Oh, that's right.
It just happens to be
Not gay Jared's
favorite wine.
Favorite
He got
wine.
drunk on a boat that he could not afford.
And apparently, post-show, there's a little bit of a shindig celebration, and this is actually your gift bottle from Stevens.
It's true.
This is going home.
It's true.
with
Yeah.
you.
It's a nice, for those who don't know,
Brokeback.
it's expensive.
Yeah.
Chapstick.
He'll be selling it for crack very soon.
Don't worry, I'm
Sorry, meth. We have to get the racial stereotypes right. Heroin bridges the racial
Powder.
divide.
There we go.
Sven Computer, you ready with the overlays?
I'm ready with the overlays. I have a big announcement regarding my social media, and that is that I completely deleted it. It's no longer there.
Oh, well, that's healthy.
Yeah, that's healthy. And I mean, you can check if it's still there. And if you check it, it's on computer.
Totally uncomfortable. By the way, today we're going to be getting a lot of people asked after the Venezuela video with John Oliver, the rebuttal, debunking this sort of myth of the Nordic socialist states that are successful. So we're going to do that today. We're going to get into that because we'll be talking about news with Nigel and Lauren and Owen. So we'll get into that evergreen segment there. But there's other news of the day. A new whistleblower now claims that Steve Bannon allegedly used personal data to try and suppress the black vote. This is a quote from CNN. It says, Mr. Bannon sees cultural warfare as a means to create an enduring change in the American politics. One thing, Sven Computer, you noticed, this was the headline, but you and I both went in for a quote. The guy doesn't say that Steve Bannon used it to suppress the black vote at all.
It says nowhere anything about black vote.
No, it says nowhere, nothing. It says nothing.
that's good.
Oh, I must have misread that. No, I didn't misread it at all. They got it wrong because the data actually showed that would have been just as effective. Okay, Steve Bannon hiding in black people's closets. That would have worked better.
That does scare me.
Also, by the way, really quickly, this is the whistleblower, for those who don't know, in question.
I am concerned that we made Russia aware of the programs that we were working on, and that might have sparked an idea that eventually led to some of the disinformation programs that we've seen and the interference that we've seen from Russia in American elections.
Holy crap, it's a male lesbian feminist.
How is that even possible?
A Canadian hipster one, no less. I feel like a cosmic wormhole was created in a parallel socialist basement-dwelling universe. And I think you heard wah, 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 suppress black vote.
Yeah.
In there somewhere. Okay, Jared, you said...
right?
Yeah, I this is, you can watch the whole thing. I encourage you to, yeah.
No, going back to the bed thing, I had a friend who chastised his wife for having an irrational fear of sharks. And I said, that's not irrational at all. That's a very rational fear. He's like, no, she thinks they're under her bed. I'm like,
oh, yeah, yes.
There's a good chance. Like, that is irrational. That's highly irrational. There's a good chance, though, Steve Bannon is under your bed.
Yes.
Suppressing your vote.
Right. And sometimes he puts on a shark
Not
head.
outside the realms of possibilities.
He puts on a shark head because he likes to have a laugh. But seriously, though, whistleblowers, by the way, can be a real pain. We've actually, we've had problems here with in Laura. Yeah, Sven Computer.
Not get Jared's queer.
Okay, that's not exactly okay.
He is a queer.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for ratting on your fellow Lados. Good
Wow.
Soros. Have you learned nothing? Wow.
They have hotlines for that, all right? You don't have to...
Elon Musk, by the way, is back in the news. That's always a good topic to cover. We don't get anger with that. Because Thursday, Tesla data confirmed that the wrecked Model S was, in fact, an autopilot when it hit a truck at 60 miles per hour.
Oops.
Of course, quick to brag on it was Elon Musk himself, tweeting, what's actually amazing about this accident is that the Model S hit a fire truck at 60 miles per hour and the driver only broke an ankle. At an impact that speed, usually it results in severe injury or death. Timing, Elon. Timing.
Geez.
He went on to tweet, and especially when taking into account that it was a female Oriental AI robot behind the wheel, for which we have uncharacteristically low expectations.
We're going to get hate mail.
I'm so scared. I only drive 10 miles. 10 miles per hour.
My little robot feet, no touch the pedal.
I robot. Why you gonna give me long feet?
Why you bind my feet? I robot.
My shoes are slipping in.
Almost seems senseless.
I need tighter shoes.
Thank God I'm a learning computer.
Where phone book? I too short. This is not a hard to come. I go 6 miles an hour.
Just because it's my favorite story of the week, a man in a local news story almost got his purse stolen, and he made really clear that he was not going to be giving up his Louis Vuitton bag. Hopefully we get him as a guest. Roll clip.
Give me your bag. And I was like, you're not getting my Louis Vuitton. I worked very hard for this. I got my bag. You can pry it out of my cold, dead hands.
The confidence is actually well earned when you realize he's a black belt in Tudo. So yeah. He looks like the guy who killed Versace. For people who don't know when you watch it.
Yeah, he so loved that bag. If the next words out of his mouth were, I love this bag. I identify as this bag.
Yeah,
I would not have been shocked at all.
I hate
They talked about how it has such deep meaning. It just means expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive so you get to be catty with other gay guys about it. But I would like to have him on the show, absolutely. You think about a purse, if it's loaded, it's a weapon. So Russia, by the way, because it's in the news, we have to, because, it's a show, news,
Russia.
Thursday. $4 billion Crimea bridge, but they finished it.
They finished it.
But Vladimir Putin Putin. I said Putin. This is gonna be. We're gonna get fat. I'm gonna get so much hate mail for this. Oh, it's Putin, and he's a great man. He's led his country. You believe in the Western propaganda?
Israel shill.
He wanted to be the first to cross the bridge, but he was beaten by a cat. Cat got to it first. So that cat, by the way, was never seen again. Till he was fingered actually as a ringleader in Cambridge Analytica's Russian data collecting cat scandal. So that's, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
12 miles
It's
is nothing.
almost like he thinks that he's above the law.
12 miles is not nothing. There's no doubt he was juiced.
Yes.
100% chance.
At the very least, he was on EPO litter.
They actually called Jared to come take care of the problem. He knows how to kill pets.
This is true. Nake Jared has a long
brought
and
in the
storied history
specialist.
killing
Being
pets.
Putin. Like this.
Hey, speaking of killing things, a 25-year-old Texas man is in serious trouble after he was posing as a 17-year-old high school student in order to relive his glory days in the basketball squad. It's like High School Musical meets rape. So the real story from Dallas News: Sidney Bouvier, Gilstrap Portley. That's a bunch of names. Jingle Smith. His name is my dates. Underage girls. Began the school year at Skyline High School. I want to make sure I get this right because a lot of moving pieces. There, he enrolled, claiming to be a Hurricane Harvey refugee.
So necessary.
A little late.
Months later, he transferred to Hillcrest High School, where he dated a 14-year-old classmate and joined the basketball team.
Of course he would.
Yeah, it makes you feel good that that's in your own backyard in the United States. Lest you look down your nose at other nations. Of course, by the way, this is highly illegal, and once it was discovered, the school was preparing to expel him, pursue legal action. So he just slapped on a pair of tits and and went on to win the female state wrestling title. So all is well that ends well.
The dude could still be dunking on bitches today if he did that in the first place.
You just gotta do a little estrogen.
Think about this, though. Transageism is far more rational than transgenderism. I mean, at one point he was 17.
It's true.
And you can have a young kid with a high IQ or an adult who has a 4th grade learning level. So it's far more reasonable.
At one point, he did experience it.
He did. He's never had a vagina.
I don't really like the path we're going down. It almost seems as though we're excusing this.
How stupid do you have to be to see a 25-year-old man and think he's 17? I mean, is it like a Not Jay Garrett kind of?
They were probably watching too much of the CW network.
Yeah.
They're watching it where 35-year-olds play 18-year-olds and recruit for sex cults.
They were looking at state championship trophies for basketball.
Between Arrow reruns.
All right. Okay. This is a story that I was vetoed in the pitch meeting. We had to cover. A Canadian woman has now been detained, and that seems remarkably mild when you hear the rest of the story, has been only detained after getting angry at a Tim Hortons, defecating on the floor, and proceeding to hurl it at the employees. So usually we would withhold judgment from these kinds of stories, say, all right, wait till all the evidence comes in.
Yeah, words like allegedly.
Allegedly. But in this case, we have very damning footage. And look, make sure we have to blur this for the. I know this is so. That's a lot. Look at this. Hold on. You know what What I find so crazy about that is for those who are listening on the audio version, she picks up the feces, she throws it, and then she grabs a paper towel, and because she uses that like a sling, and then she throws the paper towel. So this is not the first time she's done this. And by the way, for those who haven't seen the clip, I know we had to blur. That's some serious velocity on that. Drafted, said the rebooted Montreal Expos.
Curveballs and sliders have a whole new meaning.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
I don't know how that applies to curveballs. That must be you because of the no colon
Leave that
thing.
one alone. Yeah. How mad do you have to be to take a crap on the floor though? In the middle of a store.
Well, it's not so much. Yeah, that's a good point.
Or high.
It's not.
How high do you have to?
It's about intent. Pooping spitefully is very disturbing.
It takes a minute. She popped that out pretty fast.
I mean, it's like she can do it on command. It's anger poop.
Yeah.
Tim Hortons isn't even that great, by the way, but the donuts are the shit.
Oh, come on now. You're giving us all work.
That's Morning Grinders level, okay? We're better than that.
All right. So, but actually, I think here to discuss, we do have to discuss. I always wonder also what happened to Jane Goodall. Apparently, this is Coco the Monk. The movie, by the way, Congo sucked, which was loosely based on Jane Goodall. That's not true. None of it is true. I just wanted to make sure that we have enough time to bring on our next guest actually to discuss this issue.
Really?
Is the Prime Minister of Canada, where I was raised. I think, do we have him here?
Have him
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, are you here, sir?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Stephen. I think what's most important for
people stateside to understand is that this is not in any way representative of all the citizens of Canada. I don't think any of us thought that it was representative of all the citizens of Canada. No, I don't think that's the issue. While at the same time, I want to extend a hand of grace and understanding to our oft maligned and misunderstood shit-throwing community. No, see, I don't think that's a vibrant and rich addition to Canada's people kind. I don't think that's an actual subset. That's not a community at all. Stephen, I found that contrary to your approach in the United States, here in Canada, conflict is not our first course of action. And I don't know the upbringing of this young Canadian lady in the Tim Hortons. And until I've walked a mile in her steamy shoes. No, see, it could not be less relevant, her upbringing. And this is the problem. This is why of how we as Canadians have failed. Again. See? Our shit-throwing community, Steve. All right, listen, Prime Minister Trudeau, I don't think this is a crying. Shame. I'm sorry. I don't think this is a cry-worthy story here. No, okay, what's it else? Get rid of him. All right, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, everybody. That's enough. We shouldn't have him on the show anymore, no. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
It's the same story every time.
He's also very difficult to frame properly.
He is, and he's highly predictable in his responses.
Bizarre arms, too, as well.
Never know.
Rewind that footage for those who missed it. Find an Easter egg. We apologize.
There we go.
Okay, so no strong opinions on that, on the flinging feces? No? All right. No. Okay, so let's get to this. We got a lot of feedback on this. We've talked about this, for those who are not Mug Club members, in the Daily Show quite a bit, this idea of the Nordic socialist model. Yeah. Right, we hear this quite a bit. And this was used, well, they keep moving the goalposts, and that's what's important here, right? We hear socialism's worked. So now we hear, well, places like Venezuela didn't do socialism correctly, right? Even though they were being praised not long ago by Sean Penn and politicians.
Everybody on the left,
and Bernie Sanders. So they keep moving, and they say, well, hold on a second. The Nordic countries, we should model those. And don't take my word for it.
When I talk about democratic socialism, I'm not looking at Venezuela. I'm not looking at Cuba. I'm looking at countries like Denmark and Sweden.
Is it really possible for someone who calls himself a socialist to be elected president of the United States?
Well, so long as we know what democratic socialism is. And if we know that in countries in Scandinavia, like Denmark, Norway, Sweden, in those countries, healthcare is a right of all people. In those countries, college education, graduate school is free. In those countries, retirement benefits, childcare are stronger than in the United States of America.
Okay, a couple of things. So we're going to get to actually the Danish Prime Minister who said, that's not true.
Pointing at me.
But I think it's important, okay, Marley was dead to begin with, is people need to understand that these Scandinavian countries, they don't owe their success to socialism. They actually became very wealthy, first off, under free market economies, and then later imposed, by the way, in some form. In some ways, they're certainly further to the left of the United States, but in other ways, we'll get to, like corporate tax rates, not even close. But later on, after they built their economy, imposed some high taxes and large welfare states. So for instance, 1870 through 1936, Sweden was the fastest growing economy in the world. But after 1975, when the Swedish started expanding the welfare state, its economic growth started to crawl. After that, Scandinavian countries began reducing the size of the governments. If you look at it, okay, growth, all right, implement a welfare state, and then standstill, and they start reducing it. So since the 1990s, the total taxation of the Swedish economy as a percentage of the GDP has fallen more than 5%.
Yeah, so I wanted to interrupt real quick on these points. Like, a lot of people will believe this. A lot of people will believe what Bernie Sanders just said. Right. And so it's all of our responsibility. It's not, Stephen, hey, great job, you go get them. Everybody tune in. Pick out these points and be able to tell your friends, because they're going to believe that this is true because the media won't call him on it.
It is very
You're not
common.
Gonna see that anywhere else, so you have to do it. We all have to.
Well, and by the way, do it with us too. We have these sources up. You can see the overlays here on the screen. I want you to call us on this, okay? Yeah. I want don't just nod your head with what we're saying. This is the opposite of Trevor Noah saying his audience shouldn't watch Fox News and Oliver. We want you to watch what they say entirely, and then watch what we say. And if we're wrong, call us out, which I'm sure I'll get something wrong today. So one thing too, these places, it's the purity they try to argue. Like, well, it's not real socialism, Venezuela. You think that a place like Sweden is more socialist than Venezuela? The Prime Minister of Denmark just recently said, again, the Nordic model still isn't socialist. Okay, Bernie? Socialism involves abolishing the free market, returning the means of production to the people's government, like in Venezuela. That's what social. So this is one thing that people often do. This is the bait and switch, right? They go, well, it's worked in Nordic countries where they have socialized health. Hold on a second. That's not socialism if there's one thing. Right? And certainly not if you're saying, well, it didn't work in Venezuela, it didn't work in places like Cuba because it wasn't real socialism. That's the importance here is the consistency of standards. Okay? They're mostly free market economies in these Nordic countries.
Literally riding the coattails of of capitalism.
Yes, exactly.
It's almost like
Then they have to either collapse or get back on the coattails of capitalism.
Well, something that's very surprising to a lot of people is even though they have very high income taxes for individuals, okay, corporate tax rates for businesses are mostly, as a general, significantly lower than the United States. So Denmark, you son of a bitch! Sorry, people, which one do you do? It depends on how I feel, how my throat feels.
I like both.
Denmark's corporate tax rate, anyone know what it is?
It's pretty high. I mean, pretty low relative. Sorry.
He's like, I said the wrong thing. 24%.
I screwed that one up.
Norway, 27%, which is high. Sweden is 22%. Wow. The U.S. is, under Obama, was 39% was the highest, if you're looking at the corporate tax rate. And now evil right-wing Trump wants to lower it to 26%, which is still higher than Sweden.
Still higher than most.
But he has bad hair.
Yeah,
That's true.
And I just love this, by the way. In case, but you don't have to take my word for it. In case you think I'm making this up, as far as the Danes and being a little bit tired of Bernie regurgitating this on American media unchecked, tail of the tape.
The major political parties on the center left and the center right would oppose many of the proposals of Bernie Sanders on the regulatory side as being too leftist.
And I'm going to take what dead Johnny Mathis Don Lemon has to say. Again, this is the last corner where they point to. We hear this all the time. They go, well, what about this country? We talked about the Sven computer. Obviously North Korea is further along the trail than socialist. But if you look back in the 1950s, North Korea, they had growth.
A few days ago, how they had a high growth rate on par with South Korea for a while, and then crashed. Beep beep.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can fake this for a while. You can just take the money and pay for it in the short term, like we saw. By the way, we also saw with Venezuela. While you guys were praising it, we're still going to call you. You don't get to there's no get out of Venezuela free card there. Yeah,
no, we've done the exact same thing with some of the socialistic kind of programs that we've implemented in the United States after successful periods of economic growth. And we tend to do that every single time we succeed. Then we try to give everybody free stuff, realize it doesn't work, and go back to working hard. Right. I hope that happens again. I hope we go back to working hard.
Yes, the consistency of standards, though, here is really, it's an important point. The only places they have left to point to are these Nordic models who survived their socialism by diluting it with capitalism and with the corporate tax rates. And something else that's really interesting, I'll get to in a second, but again, this is another myth that they claim the Nordic model would work here in the United States. The comparison is asinine, but hear them say it first.
And I think we should look to countries like Denmark, like Sweden, and Norway, and learn from what they have accomplished for their working people.
He wants America to look more like Scandinavia.
That's right. That's right. And what's wrong with that?
Okay. I think there's a lot wrong with this. A couple of things here. Several things wrong. Part of what... Okay. They're almost inadvertent ethno-states. Yeah. They were for a long time, the Scandinavian. Part of the reason the model works in these countries is that they are incredibly small. Yeah. Right? Very, very small, entirely homogenous populations with a very industrious culture. Okay, do you think that it is more likely or less likely to take something that barely worked in these countries? Again, people can't even afford used cars in Denmark because of some of these taxes, and they're scaling it back. Do you think it's more likely or less likely to work in the United States? Just look at how we've implemented socialism here. It also really doesn't matter to look at Social Security, look at Obamacare, look at public education. These are not shining beacons of success in the United States. These are stains, generally speaking, on our history.
Yeah. Just take really inefficient programs and supersize them.
Yeah, exactly. You can't take a country that has the population of Delaware. That isn't smaller. And by the way, has a national identity, which was based on being an entirely homogenous culture for a long time, not a series of ideas for a long time.
I don't even know what Bernie at this point runs though on, because he's still throwing this out there. But at some point with the success of Trump's tax cuts, what is he out there pitching? He can only point to more free stuff that these models have.
Right, exactly.
Going farther, it won't work.
And by the way, the tax cuts
more free crap
from President Donald Trump now are popular. Yeah. There's a plurality because most people are actually seeing, they're seeing more money coming home in their paycheck.
So I don't know what Brexit's more popular than ever.
Yeah, I don't know what we'll talk about with Nigel Farage. I don't know what you do. I don't know what Bernie does. The wealthiest 1%, but I'm getting more in my paycheck though. The myth is gone. Once it's been implemented, you've been kind of like with democratic socialism. You've been fed a myth.
Turns out I don't even like leaning.
Yes.
It took a while to learn.
No, it turns. You've heard him sell you the Nordic model of socialism until you realize then the Danes say, no, that's actually not true. He's completely factually incorrect. You've heard him describe what the tax cuts were going to be, how it was only going to benefit the Koch brothers, and then you see it in practice. That's what's important. It's not just the words, but the actions. And again, big. first off, a couple things I find funny. This is going to change because of the migrant crisis.
Yeah.
And they've found different ways to solve the problem. Denmark just making itself as unattractive to migrants as possible. Finland already had that covered. Remember, they walked into Finland and said, nope, and they left.
They had the corner on ugly refugee holes.
Yes, there was nothing in Finland that they wanted. But a big reason that these countries are successful is their industrious culture. I know people are going to say, oh, that's a racist argument. You're using. No. Listen, I'm talking about their history, these people, the kind of culture they've been steeped in for a long time. So this is something that I thought was incredibly interesting. Reg, our researcher, brought this to my attention. I did not know this until about 6 months ago. Okay? If you take these from Sweden, from Denmark, from these countries, and you transplant them to the United States of America, so you transplant them from these supposedly socialist utopias, their standards of living actually go up, not down. Danish Americans take the culture, transplant them. Their living standards are 55% higher than those in Denmark. Living standards of Swedish Americans are 53% higher than those in Sweden. Finnish Americans, living standards are 59% higher than those in Finland. The schnozberries taste like schnozberries.
It's almost like there's a stronger correlation between industriousness and success than free crap.
Exactly. It is so incontrovertible at that point. So these are, go back to, we said Delaware, but largely, let's say Ohio. Let's be generous, right? Not gay, Jared, you're a big fan of Ohio for whatever reason.
I don't know. I hate myself
Got out
too.
of there as fast
What's been going on with the NBA? I don't know. I don't really
we're not talking about that.
But okay, all right, we'll move on. That's a good way to set up for Nigel Farage. Let's get Jared as upset as humanly possible.
Yeah, let's do that.
So do we think it's fair to make this comparison? This is a genuine question. Do you think it's fair to compare, let's say, Denmark or, I don't know, Iceland or Sweden to the United States, a country of 300+ million people, which is unbelievably diverse in comparison?
Yeah, no.
Okay, let's take another step. Let's say you think it's fair. You think it's a fair comparison, you still think it'll work. Well then, would we say that it's equally fair or maybe a more fair comparison? Let's say like California, super liberal state in the United States versus, say, Texas. So blue policy, left policy versus right policy here in the United States. Bigger populations than a lot of the countries we're talking about.
Exactly.
And both in the same country. Would we say that's maybe more apt comparison? Okay, because Texas is actually ranked as the best state for business 12 years in running.
Boom.
There's a reason Jeff Bezos isn't scouting Los Angeles for the next Amazon.
Worst, by the way, California for 12 years in running. Some of the highest poverty rates in the United States. And of course, the opposite of Texas. California has some of the highest taxes. Texas has no state income tax, by the way, and a surplus.
That's right.
A lot of people don't know how to make sense of that. It's like, well, so what do you mean? There's no state. No, there's no state income tax. But there's a surplus?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have more money. We have more money than we're spending.
It's weird.
More money?
So much winning.
What do you mean? Do me a favor, all you Californians, on this. Just remember this when you move to the state of Texas. Okay?
Right, yes.
Leave your policies behind.
Well, the reason we use those two
Check
states
ours out.
is because they're both very large states. They're both very diverse states. They're both. It wouldn't be fair to, let's say,
Big
compare
economies,
California versus Rhode Island.
That's
right?
true.
Or it wouldn't be fair to compare Texas and, I don't know, Wyoming. These are two very large states, both in top 5 states in population and in landmass. 2 states with a lot of natural resources, right? So they often use that with Venezuela. Well, it's the oil issue. Really? Try and imagine socialism without sitting on a giant bed of oil. It doesn't get any better. I can tell you how this ends. It's a choose your own path. And breadlines.
Yeah.
So it's a more fair. Texas and California were the purest it's the purest comparison we can have here in the United States. Unbelievably different outcomes, and a direct correlation with Californians leaving California specifically to Texas for work. If it worked here, first off, Detroit would be a utopia. We've talked about that. Not exactly. I highly recommend that you visit. Sure, some hipsters have set up some coffee shops and nailed some dockers to a tree, and they want to call it art right next to the meth fire. But comparing California to Texas, I believe, is a fair comparison, certainly more than comparing these countries to the United States. And even then, these countries are not the pure example of socialism. Let's not allow these goalposts to be moved. Call me on it. Call them on it. Don't just nod your head here in agreement. I want you to do the research. I want you to find out what socialism is. Read the definition of socialism. Read whatever books you want on socialism, right? Don't even have to take my word for it, like LeVar Burton. You're better off taking the word of a 6-year-old who recommends a book. I like the book with the pop-ups. That's absolutely fascinating, Captain. So I recommend you do research on socialism, okay? Then compare the list of Venezuela. Compare the list of places like a lot of countries in South America, of Cuba, with textbook definition versus the Nordic model. What's most like socialism? And then just throw them all out, because none of it really works that well. We have Nigel Farage coming up after the break. We have to have him. Let's go.
Wonder 2 and 2. P-O-G.
My Demonetization does not exist on this platform, does it?
No, Sensei!
Notifications do not exist on this platform, does it?
No, Sensei!
Free speech does not exist on this platform, does it?
No, Sensei!
What do we say here?
The way of the YouTube, sir!
And what is that way?
Safe spaces, no dissent, no notifications, sir!
I can't hear you!
Safe spaces, no dissent, no notifications, sir!
Mr. Doc Gay Lawrence, warm them up.
Aye! Preferred pronoun positions! Z, zero! C!
Z!
Zero!
Zero!
C!
Z!
Zero!
Zero!
C!
Z!
Zero!
Today I didn't even have to use my AK. I gotta say it was a good day.
Our first guest, woo, I love him. He's the Mac Daddy of the UK. Around here we say it pays to keep your Nigel hand strong. You know him as Mr. Brexit. Follow him on the Twitter at Nigel_Farage. Mr. Farage, thank you for being back, sir.
Great to be here. How are you?
I am so excited to have you. Big week internationally, so we have international guests here on this show. A couple of things I wanted to get into. I know it's topical. I know you don't have a ton of time, but one thing that is incredibly interesting is you've proposed that Donald Trump be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. But your reasoning, I thought, was very interesting. Care to explain for people who aren't?
Well, look, Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize because the committee thought he was so nice and so lovely that he'd do great things as president. So he got a Nobel Peace Prize for what they thought he might do. This president is actually doing stuff. And okay, I know in the last 48 hours, Rocket Man, Kim, is saying, I might not go if you demand total denuclearization. But look, already, what the president's achieved by talking tough, by not appeasing bad people, what he's also achieved by persuading China that they absolutely have to put proper sanctions on North Korea.
Right.
Already, we've had a summit between North Korea and South Korea. There's going to be a meeting. The Singapore meeting will happen. So I think the president is making stuff happen. And if anyone deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, it's him. And so after the summit, I'm going to go to the European Parliament and start a petition to ask European politicians to sign it. I mean, it could be quite a small signature list,
yes,
but I think it's it's the right thing to do.
And it puts them in a corner because talk about losing faith in your institutions if you compare this. Although, to be fair, President Barack Obama did have a beer summit with that police officer and that black guy. I remember that because they preferred Blue Moon. That was a big deal here in the United States, so baby steps. Let me ask you this, Mr. Farage. So people here keep talking. First off, how do you get along with Prime Minister Trudeau? Have you spent any time with him?
No, I haven't. He's a bit too trendy for me, I think.
Yeah, that's a word we can use. People have been just complaining about the Brexit. Obviously, people on the left, and there's been this back and forth. And I like that you've said, all right, put your money where your mouth is. You've talked about potentially, now it's a word I'm familiar with from Quebec, referendum, a second referendum on Brexit. Explain that because stateside, some people don't necessarily know.
Okay, let me be clear. I do not want a second referendum on Brexit. We've had the referendum. We won. We beat the establishment. It was never supposed to be the best of three. But what we have here is we have much of our political establishment who are doing everything they can to water down Brexit, to delay Brexit. And if they can, and I'm talking about the Tony Blairs of this world and people like that. And if they can, they will do anything within their power to force us to vote again. And all I'm saying to people is, if you voted Brexit and you're pleased with the result, don't be complacent, because these guys may ask us to do it again. And if we do face that, it's the worst case scenario, but if we do face that, next time we're going to crush them.
Yes, I want to clarify what I was saying. Best 3 out of 5 is my belief when it comes to this. Best 3 out of 5. It's like when you're playing wall ball as a kid. 3 out of 5. We'll go 3. We'll go 3 sets. We'll go 3 sets.
Best of 7.
Huge week for President Donald Trump. Listen, I'm man enough to admit we talked about this week when we were incorrect. I thought the risk with President Trump is that obviously he's bombastic to a lot of people. He's a polarizing figure for good and for bad. And I thought, oh, that could hurt Republicans in the long run. It seems to me, after these last couple weeks, first off, the tax cut is wildly popular, which is very, very hard to do with any kind of an economic proposal, let alone actually a piece of legislation. Then you have Iran, North Korea, and now, of course, the embassy in Jerusalem. I wanted to get your take on this. I had actually listened to your radio show, and you talked about how this was a good thing. Actually, I think you said it was imperative for the United States Embassy to be in Jerusalem. But I was very confused because during the election, during the Brexit, the media said that you were, of course, racist, anti-Semitic, and all of the above. So clarify.
Of course. Yes. Oh, come on, please. I'm homophobic. Add to the list. Go on.
Naturally.
You know, nobody had ever called me anti-Semitic until I attacked George Soros and his unnecessary intervention in, our world right across the West. But you attack Soros, they call you anti-Semitic. Right. Look, I tell you what's really important here. Trump stood before the American public and said, I will do this, this, and this. I will break the Iran nuclear deal. It's not working. I will not just say, as the Bushes did and Clinton did and Obama did, that I'll move the embassy to Jerusalem. I will actually do it.
Right.
And the really important thing about Trump is that what he is doing is he is genuinely restoring voters' faith in a democratic process. He's delivering what he said he'd do, and all the others on both sides of the pond make promises to get votes without even having the intention of putting those things into practice. So I admire him hugely for it. And as far as Jerusalem's concerned, well, that line's now moved. Any future negotiations have to work on the basis that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel.
Exactly. That's how it is. And if people don't like it, sorry, listen, we had elections. The guy delivered on his promise. By the way, he delivered, like you said, on Obama's promise. So just consider it.
Clinton's promise.
Just consider it a belated promise delivery from President Obama. Let's give him that one. Just like they're saying that, well, the tax break, they're going to hurt you 10 years down the line as it gets more popular. You might see some savings in your paycheck now, but 10 years down the line, let's just chalk this up for President Obama. 10 years down the line, Jerusalem embassy. Final question, Mr. Farage. Let me ask you this. We've talked about this quite a bit. Now, being raised in Canada, I have a lot of family in Canada. And you have two different points of view, right? That Donald Trump has hurt our standing abroad as far as how we're seen as Americans, respected. And then you have another point of view, mine, where we talk about Iran, Kim Jong-un, and actually seeing power through strength here. What is your opinion on that internationally? How do you think people view the United States right now?
Well, look, we had 8 years of Obama, who, as I say, was given the Nobel Peace Prize, was treated by the British media as the second coming of Jesus Christ, this wonderful man who'd arrived and who put down red lines in Syria, which once they were crossed, he didn't respond to. And America's status across the world shrank within the course of those 8 years. What has stunned people about Trump's presidency more than any other single thing is right from the moment he got off that aeroplane in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, his first overseas visit, is the way that he's carried and conducted himself on the world stage. Do you know, when he was in Beijing, walking around the capital of China, he looked so at ease and so confident, I thought he was about to put a bid in to buy the place. That's comfortable.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Well, when he's finished as president, there could be Trump, Beijing, you never know.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, he's achieved amazing things on the world stage. And when he speaks, people listen. And I think they also know Trump does not appease people.
Yes.
If Trump says, you're a bully and I'm going to stand up to you, those bullies swallow hard and say, this is one president who perhaps means it.
Yeah.
As a result of all that, America's standing in the world is far greater than it was when he took office. Well done him.
I will absolutely agree with that. Sometimes he almost doubles down where someone's like, well, I'm really not a bully. And sometimes it's justifiable. Like, well, he's not a bully. And Trump's like, no, he's a bully. I already decided. To be fair, the second coming of Christ with President Barack Obama, I hate to fact check here, but it was misleading with the verses and revelations talking about him being raised in Indonesia doing cocaine with his college professor. It's very, very easy to get that confused with the end times and make a false prediction. Mr. Nigel Farage, Nigel_Farage on Twitter. Thank you so much, sir. I know you're busy. Appreciate you taking the time, sir.
Thank you.
And we'll be back after this with Owen Benjamin, Lauren Southern. It's live read time. Usually it's the Mug Club live read, but this week we're actually going to talk about something. We're incredibly appreciative, and we do need you to sign up at loudealscreditor.com/mugclub to support the daily show. But this week we want to talk about someone who's supported our show an unbelievable amount, and that's Walther Firearms. They've been a sponsor for the show for a while. It started out with us just being fans of the firearms. It's such an easy sponsor to have because we always tell people, like, listen, there are plenty of great firearms out there, okay? We're not saying the Walther, but we just recommend you try the Walther. Go to a gun range.
I just tried it. I'm like, I wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah, it just made it so easy to
awesome.
shoot. And of course, we've done several videos at the gun range where we've taken people for their first time. Every single time they either went on to buy a Walther or wanted to buy a Walther, but they couldn't because they were too young. I've seen in the last Change My Mind because she was not 21 years old. Little known fact, you can't buy a handgun unless you're 21. So this is their PPQ, their full-size model, easiest firearm to shoot. Just Google Walther PPQ reviews, and then this right here is, of course, what a lot of us carry at Lotto's Credit. Now look, check, make sure it's unloaded. That's the PPS, of which I'm a huge fan as well. Walther Firearms, just try it. Go to a gun range, go to a firearm range, try it, and see if you like it, because they've had the balls to stand up and actually support this program. And there aren't a lot of people who do that. We've actually had people ask us to not mention their products. I just talked about products on air incidentally. They said, "Can you not do that? We don't want to be associated with this show because we want to go on. We want to make sure David Hogg gives us a shout out on his Instagram." So Walther Firearms, thank you guys so much. And if you want to support a sponsor that supports the show, and it's a great product anyway, Walther Firearms. Louder with Crowder Studios, protected exclusively by Walther. And now for Hopper Crowder eating blueberries. Oh boy, the blueberry. This is good blueberry, and I get so much more than now with people joining the Mug Club at louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub, because they can buy me more blueberries and shit. Oh, I gotta sit. Oh, Baba, gentle. I hope everybody joins up, but I won't feed me more blueberries. Oh. Patience. Oh, more blueberries. Thank God for Mug Club.
Listening to all the things you can't hear. No matter where life is, always be together. You should know.
Get the ball back, 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 that ball, get the ball back, get the ball. It's your ball. Are you saying get the ball or get the bomb back?
The ball, because
that would be distasteful this week.
That would be a little distasteful. Prepare for that.
As a matter of fact, it's distasteful any week that Hamas still has control of the Gaza Strip. Really good to have our next guest. We're going to have a little ditty on from him later on the show, the last commercial break, but right now we're just having him as a human.
As a human.
Because he's a human being as well. You can follow his tour. He'll be touring the Pacific Northwest here soon at hugepianist.com. And his YouTube channel, I think, is Owen Benjamin Comedy. Owen, do I have that right?
You do, my friend, and I am a real human being.
Yes. I'm a human being. Anyone else name that movie line? I know Owen knows it. People watching 2 Minutes Crowder.
We really should update our lower third.
Yeah, you really should update our lower third. I realize your lower third still has your Twitter on there. I'm sorry. It's like looking at a ghost.
Open wounds.
I was just on Gavin McInnes's CRTV show, and it listed everyone's Twitter, and it just said mine banned.
And then someone searched at band, and they're like, no, that's a pornography advertisement.
Steve banned in pornography. It's weird.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
Very bizarre genre.
Hey, speaking of bizarre, you were telling me this during the break. A Pittsburgh newspaper editor said you were an alt-right, something along those lines, got fired, right? Which is incredibly rare for you to put one over on them. So hats off to you.
It was really exciting, and I only know it because my wife is actually even more spiteful than I am. So she will keep up on the people that have lied and slandered me, and she just comes in today and she's like, that guy who lied and said you were this racist alt-right guy, the editor got fired. And she was like, how great is that? I'm like, baby, I love that you love me and we're not enemies. It's rare that happens, so you got to savor it when it does.
Was he fired because of what he said about you, or was it incidental?
He was also doing it to like every Republican, like just anybody on the right. Yeah, so I think that it just it just started adding up to the point where he got axed, which was great news.
But now you're not as special.
I'm not, I'm not as special, but I am starting to think that the news may be lying to us.
Yes, I think they might be misleading. Kind of like we spoke about earlier. I know your song later is about Palestine. 50 some people dead in the conflict. Listen, loss of life, tragedy. But then you look, it was 20-something. I think were convicted terrorists or suspected terrorists.
That's what we call that.
I mean, at a certain point, and then why were babies there to begin with? Ever think about bringing? Yeah, ever think about bringing your baby to inner city Detroit? There, Owen, leaving it on a liquor store corner.
No, I feel weird when he's in like the rain.
To be fair, I was only rating mustard gas, so it's a little different.
Because in law, you have to factor in intent. And this is what I found so interesting about, because you never know about the Middle East. It's been a mess for a long time, but I was watching it, and you see like Western media, like New York Times, and they're like, all these people want is to be neighbors and peaceful. And then you see like these crazy Palestinians be like, no, we want to kill the Jew disease. And they're like, no, that's not what they really want. And they're like, no, all of them, and Christians, like, that's what we want to do. And I'm like, they're telling us what their plan is.
Right.
So many disease.
I don't think you know what you're. No, we feel pretty good about it. Yeah. Do you want me to pull the room? Hold on, one minute, Paul Krugman.
Should we sleep on it? No, we're good.
No, we're good. This is not a sleep on it kind of issue. We did never change.
They were tweeting about it. Like Hamas has like a Twitter handle that's like, if you retweet 100 times, we will blow up Jew for you.
It is. Well, by the way,
at scary guy.
Not necessarily the dialogue you'd hear from an alt-rightist. I don't know, alt-righter. I don't even know. With Owen Benjamin. Yeah,
I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what alt-right even means.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure anymore either. They've tried to use it to mean like it's basically they want everyone to think that all alt-right people are Ed Furlong from American History X, pre-redemption.
Oh, right.
But I don't know. I don't know what it means anymore either. It seems like it's been so. This is what the left has done, right? They've diluted it so much it doesn't mean anything anymore. Just like they've screamed the Trump sky is falling for so long that no one believes it anymore, and it makes them bulletproof. It makes people like you bulletproof. No one's going to believe them anymore when they say that Owen did something shocking and alarming, which you probably will do.
At some point, but it will involve more probable, like a slingshot in my neighbor's windows or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Like I think it was Steve McQueen and Frank Zappa. He shot his windows out with a shotgun because he wouldn't turn the bathroom light off in Malibu.
That's amazing.
I could see.
Yeah, like race is probably one of the last things I would ever rate a person on. Like for me, it's a lot more about height.
Yes.
And let's just say I like your height, buddy. That's one reason why I think we became such good friends so quickly. We respect each other's height.
I appreciate it. One would say that you almost have an unfair advantage being 6'8", though. That is.
Yeah,
it's
I
like
went too far, though. I went too far. I went past the money zone. I can't ride on roller coasters, and I'll die before you.
This is true. Yeah, this is absolutely true. Your heart has to pump it to all your limbs. And hey, I found this out today. Baby aspirin. My doctor spoke with you should know this, Owen, as a big guy, because you'll die young. My dad was getting tested, and they said they were doing all these tests for sort of your sort of, I guess, your risk ratio, the risk assessment for coronary heart disease. And he said, well, no, good cholesterol, good blood pressure, all this exercise, diets. He said, but my dad did have a stroke. And they said, do you take a baby aspirin? He said, every day since my father had a stroke, I think in 1997, 93, I can't remember exactly. And they said that entirely eliminates the genetic component to stroke and almost completely eliminates early stroke period, provided everything else is normal, you're healthy. So take a baby aspirin, maybe you'll make it to 64.
Yeah, but most of my family lives real long. But back then they were like 5'11", but they were like lead miners. Like they were still the tallest dudes.
Yes.
But I think I got enough nutrition now to really enter a bad zone. So I might have to get into baby aspirin. Because like if I get hit in the foot, I don't feel it for like a half hour.
Yes. Yeah. Well, enjoy it while you can. Of course, I suspect my doctor's been paid by Big Aspirin.
Big Aspirin.
He's collecting those $1.50 CVS generic brand
aspirin.
checks.
Yeah, people are just freebasing baby aspirin.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Oh, and where are you going to be next? You're touring, so bigpianist.com. I know you said the Pacific Northwest.
Huge pianist.
Why did I say huge pianist? I'm sorry.
It's all good. Sometimes people mess up how I describe being a pianist.
Yes,
I will be in Portland, Richland, Washington, and Bellevue, Washington. And you can get tickets at my website and also at my YouTube channel. I do live streams every day. Jamming piano.
Owen Benjamin Comedy. And what dates are they starting the Pacific Northwest tour for people who don't know?
June 2nd 4th, 5th, right in that zone, and it's going to be a blast. Most of them are already sold out, and now I'm starting to not get protested like I did, because I think people jumped on me because of the trans kid thing and then a few other things, and then once you like research me, you realize I'm not really that protestable, and then they kind of like die out like teething children.
That's what's happened with us after the Virginia Tech show, kind of with SMU. People realize everyone's having such a good time,
which is it's a gift when you're not living for that.
Right, exactly. We don't
live for the headlines.
Protests are incidental. We just want to do a show like you. There's some people who show up and they just want to protest. We want to do the show, and I think people, when they show up and they see everyone laughing, everyone having a good time, that's why comedy is so important. They go like, oh, maybe I'm the if they're there protesting. So it's disarming.
Yeah, it's like that old joke where two Nazis are standing next to each other, and one's like, hey, Franz, we have skulls on our lapels. Do you think we might be the bad guys?
Yeah, I remember that. Was that where was that? I know you told that. I don't know. That's an old one, but it is. That's exactly it. And I think they have this realization when they're there. And he gave me flack for not getting Huge Pianist correct.
I know.
He doesn't know what city he's going to be in. Anyways, you guys can check it out at hugepianist.com. Owen, we have to go. You'll be back with your song during the commercial break. Thank you very much, sir. And
thank you, brother.
I believe, we're
connecting now.
We have Lauren.
Got her.
She's there. Oh, okay. At Lauren_Southern. Lauren, thank you for being with us.
Absolutely.
Glad to have you. So now you're back in
from Owen's face.
Yes, refreshing change of pace from Owen's plenum. Now you're back in Canada because you're not allowed in the UK, right? I have that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Because
I'm gonna see how many countries I can get banned from before I'm like 30 or something.
Yes. How many was it? Italy and the UK now?
I'm not banned from Italy yet. Working on that though. I have trouble getting in.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to verse Brittany Pettibone at it. We'll see.
Okay. So, all right. So now, is it all of the UK?
Yeah, it's all of the UK. So I can't even. Oh wait.
So there's kind of an alliance against you, really, with the.
That's so much cooler than me. I'm just banned from a few select movie theaters.
This is true. Yeah, and in Ohio. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm banned from Patreon too, I guess, but that's not quite a country yet.
No.
Once we start having corporations buying their own islands and creating their own nations, then maybe I'll be banned from some more.
Yes. Well, Patreon, little known fact, has 1,800 times the GDP of Ghana, also the first country Barack Obama visited. So there's that. You could put that as an arrow in your quiver. You'll probably be banned pretty soon because you've been doing this film called Farmland, right?
I wouldn't go back to South Africa. So even though I'm not officially banned,
right,
I've been getting calls from people saying, do not go back to South Africa, whatever you do. But yes, my film Farmlands, it's been a nightmare getting it done in the background. People are like, where is it, Lauren? Where is it? But it will be out this month, 100%, on the crisis going on in South Africa with the farm murders, the crazy anti-white policies coming from the ANC, and just the overall chaos, drought, and nightmare that South Africa is right now.
Yes. Okay. Well, so you're not going back to South Africa anytime soon, but I don't know that they would necessarily have you. We'll call that one a wash. For people who don't know what is going on here in South Africa, citizens are taking tactical training themselves. I know you've talked about this, and it's in your film Farmlands, and I appreciate that, by the way. It's going to be. She's not pulling an Anita Sarkeesian. The film should actually be completed. It ran into strong woman, hurdles, overcomes them. She jumps over them, like Bruce Jenner before he was Caitlyn.
Used to be known as following through.
Yes, used to be known as follow through. Now they're arming themselves. They're learning to protect themselves against. This is something that people miss: government-backed marauders. As a Canadian in a country where it's very difficult to obtain firearms, or certainly the Second Amendment is very foreign to them. How did you relate to seeing this in South Africa, and did it ring some bells for kind of thinking stateside, the Second Amendment, and how important it is?
Yeah, so it's actually extremely difficult to get firearms in South Africa as well. When we played the trailer for Farmlands, we had some footage in someone's window and it was showing firearms on the wall, and I was worried because tons of people were like, Lauren, you're trying to exaggerate. Those are just paintball guns on their wall. Those aren't real guns, which is true. Most of the people buy paintball guns so they can stock up with pepper balls and everything for self-defense because they can't get real guns. We met up with a woman
You wouldn't know that seeing the videos with South Africa. But just in general, that'll only piss them off.
That's why Trevor Noah got the hell out.
A government-backed marauder on crack. I don't think a pepper paintball is going to do it. But sorry, continue.
Yeah. So people try to defend themselves in all kinds of ways with electric fences, paintball guns, the rest of it. And for the few people that can get guns, which they are desperately trying to get them now, yes, they are practicing self-defense because the government has basically given a free-for-all for the Bantu blacks to take white land, which important thing here for people to understand. The Bantu blacks, which are the tribes that run most of the ANC government, are not indigenous to the land. The Khoisan natives are, and the Khoisan natives are not getting any of the land from white people that is now being redistributed by the government. So there's an all-out attack on white people right now for their land. The government has said, go ahead, take it. In fact, we're going to go in and forcefully take it. And the Boer people are training with whatever they can get. If they can get guns, they're using that. If they can get paintballs, most of it is just for self-defense purposes.
Go back there and tell them not to use the paintballs. I would tell them, be better off just sharpening pointy sticks than paintballs. They'd be better off trying to find an Acme anvil that they could hit a button and drop on somebody. That's a more realistic expectation than fighting these people off with paintballs.
Work for Rwanda.
That's actually a really good point. There's this one girl who I met with, and this will be in the documentary. She runs one of those paintball studios who sells stuff to the Boer people and to people who just actually want to go paintballing.
Don't use the pepper.
She actually has a time in her head. She's like, on Thursdays at about 4 p.m., people come in and break in with guns. She's been beaten with a pipe a couple times, had to go for serious psychological, just kind of...
That'd be legitimate PTSD, not a feminist had a conservative show up at their conference like yours truly. Legitimate PTSD.
Exactly.
Get hit with a lead pipe, we'll give you that one.
Exactly. She has serious PTSD, but she talks about it so nonchalantly. She's like, yeah, at about 4 p.m. on these days, they come in and rob me. Right after we interviewed her, 2 days later, she had another armed robbery occur, and she's now moving out of the country, sold her paintball shop. But there you go. Can't do much defending yourself with paintball guns against literally having your place broken into every single day. It's bizarre.
I want now I kind of want the pepper paintballs just for next time we go paintball. I shoot it right in your mask. It would be like Michael Caine using the anesthesia in his mask in the Cider House Rules to fall asleep. Just breathing it in, your eyes watering. The last time I went to paintball was not very fun. I could have used a pepper paintball. That's true. These guys were wiping like it was their job. Let me ask you this. This actually relates to, obviously we've been talking this week. We just spoke with Nigel Farage about this. The embassy in Jerusalem. It's these completely unrealistic standards. Not only unrealistic, completely inconsistent standards. Why do we not hear... I know why we don't hear. That's sort of rhetorical. But isn't it remarkable that we don't hear from the left here where we're talking about gross violations of human rights? Let's remove the race portion from the equation. Just violations of human rights. Same thing when we're talking about Hamas, who have it in their charter, the destruction of all Jews. We were talking about this when they were at the wall planting mines. They go, look, these babies were killed at the wall by Israel. Why did you bring a baby to a war zone?
They're so tone deaf. On Vox, they released a video about the history of Palestine and Israel over the fight over Jerusalem. They're showing footage of them throwing junk at walls and exploding things and with the sympathetic tone narration over top. I'm like, are you watching the same footage you're showing?
Yeah, I know. I don't think they understand. It's just, for example, if we were in the States and we, as Hamas, started putting rockets or a nuclear arsenal, obviously they don't have nuclear weapons, in grade schools or in churches, of course they would be furious. But
we lose our minds over clear backpacks.
Yes, over clear backpacks. Why do you think it is that there's no talk of South Africa? Because there's a comparison there from the left where they say that Israel's an apartheid state, which it's not. Why do you think you're the one who has to make this film?
Well, there was plenty of talk about South Africa during apartheid era, which obviously there were gross human rights violations. Then obviously they had laws that specifically separated whites and blacks completely, whole Jim Crow style stuff.
Right.
But as soon as that was taken away and the Rainbow Nation narrative was sold to everyone, Nelson Mandela has created this nation where it's going to be a perfect communist progressive utopia. Left kept with that narrative, and as things started to degrade, the rand started to go down in value, crime started to go up because they stopped enforcing the laws properly, and of course the South African government has introduced quite literally anti-white laws. Of course the left isn't going to talk about that because that is not sympathetic to their narrative. Right. It's frustrating how obvious and predictable this just repeated behavior from the left-wing press is. And there's been a few pieces that have come out about me and my documentary on the Root and Vice, and all of them are saying this myth of white genocide. And I've never even called it white genocide in my documentary. I've just said it's genuine policies against whites. They like to blow up what I say and make it sound like a crazy alt-right narrative, which it's not. It's just purely facts that's going on the ground.
Right.
So the only coverage I've seen from this has been smearing these poor farmers who are not political people. They're not right-wing or left-wing. They're not nationalists or anything. They're people who have literally had crimes committed against them, have family members tortured, and the left-wing press has no interest in talking about it whatsoever. They don't want to humanize white people. They just had an article come out in BuzzFeed that said how white women use strategic tears to get what they want. What? Maybe some people are just sad and it doesn't matter what skin color they have. Maybe some people are just oppressed and it doesn't matter what skin color they have.
Yes, that's true. That's what I was going to say. All women a couple of times have probably used that at one point or another.
Starbucks and you get addicted.
I don't begrudge you. You know, you guys use the tears. We use Mel Gibson voicemails. This is what happens. We have different ways of expressing ourselves. But I'm glad that you touched it. By the way, just to be clear, South Africa has never gotten it correct. Apartheid didn't get it correct, and now it's not correct. They've never gotten their crap together. Go Marxism. And with Israel, by the way, and I know you've gotten crap from the alt-right, so I'll talk about this because of your just believing that Israel has a right to exist. So I think the press is mistaken there. I've gotten the same kind of flack. With Israel, when people compare it to an apartheid state, go, hold on a second. If a guy says, hey, let me in, and I say, well, why? I won't kill you. And I don't let him in. It's not because he's black. It's because he said he wants to kill me. That's the apartheid state we're talking about with Israel. It's not so much the melanin, so much as the loaded gun aimed at me through the window. At Lauren_Southern, where's the best place for people to go and make sure they don't miss this film?
Well, my YouTube channel, Lauren Southern, if you just look that up, if it isn't banned, hopefully in the next bit, much like my UK and Patreon situation, it will be up there for free for everyone to see. The point of this film is for as many people to see it as possible. So share it on Facebook, Twitter, wherever. Want to get the word out of what the heck is going on there. So at the very least, we don't make the mistake again, or maybe even we can prevent worse crisis going on in South Africa in the next bit.
Yes, the solution is send those farmers Walters, no more pepper paintball guns. We must go. Lauren Southern, dance us out. There you go. Look at her. That's what I call the narcissistic diver, also known as a Greg Louganis, and then bleeding and find out you have AIDS.
Humility not in the vocabulary of the diver.
Why the...
Oh.
Greg
Does
Louganis.
that
You probably don't. You're probably too young. You probably don't even know the Greg Louganis. He was a diver in the Olympics, and he did a backflip, hit his head in the board, bled all over the pool.
I saw a crazy video that was kind of like that one time. It was gruesome.
No, that
wasn't a professional diver at all.
No, that was...
That probably is why.
That was Louis Diamond Phillips playing him in the Greg Louganis story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Thank you so much, Nigel Farage, Owen Benjamin, and Lauren Southern. Very much appreciate them being on the show. Next week we have Ralph Macchio. I know on Thursday, and I don't know. We have an awesome lineup
on
next
Tuesday,
week. And we have a
Colin Monday.
If this goes through, we have another Change My Mind on Israel coming up here next Tuesday. We're not entirely sure because we're waiting on a location, but we'll see. And we will keep you posted because that's one that a lot of people have requested, and also one for which many people have asked that I be killed for my Jew money.
Sure.
You had a point that you were making earlier today, actually.
Yeah.
We were going through the pitch, which I thought was important and interesting.
Well, I've been thinking about the Denmark thing, and you were surprised by it, and I was surprised by that they live at higher standards of living,
59% higher in the
U.S., which is insane.
Yeah.
And I think what's funny about that, we talk about industriousness. Your values and your work ethic and your culture play such a huge role in the success of anything, a family, a country, a city, your economy. And the left can't talk about that.
No.
Because all cultures are equal in value.
Right.
It's a discussion they can't even have.
Yeah.
We can't even address it.
It's a good point, and
it's to the detriment of those of cultures that could use some guidance,
right,
to figure things out and fix some stuff.
Isn't that ironic? Because they talk about being progressive, but you can wipe out a civilization by just allowing the degradation of culture. It just takes one generation. And that's actually funny that actually I'm a little worried about that. I know everyone says this with their generation, right? Kids these days. That being said, at some point there is a tipping point. At some point there is an actual kids these days. So you always do kind of wonder if you're the kids these days or your kids are the kids these days. And I was actually watching.
Spot them.
Yes. And I was watching the killing of you saw the OJ story.
Yeah,
the true crime. The next one was the killing of Versace. By the way, Westworld sucks this season. A lot of people got mad. It's terrible. Loved season 1. Westworld is please not waste. After episode 4, I tapped out. Every single shot was a slow-mo shot, and the reveal is like, okay, this one's a host. We get it. It's a robot. Please move on. Back to the Ed Harris story, which is the only storyline that has any loose ends to tie up. Anyway, Westworld, terrible. But I was watching the killing of Versace, and I was watching it with my wife, and I'm never gonna use the word trigger warning, but if you have kids watching, this is something just because it is a show that obviously is not suitable for children. So take a minute. All right, Versace. Once Ricky Martin takes a guy and throws him belly down on the bed, rips off his pants, and starts going to town. I was sitting there and I turned to my wife and I said, like, this is on FX, right? And outside the fact that they don't happen to say the F word, it's a strong R. I mean, it's a strong R. Yeah. I think it's on FX, right? I don't know. I could.
Sounds right.
It's on a network. It's not just a Netflix or Hulu show.
No.
And point blank shots through the head. I remember seeing that for the first time, being shocked as a kid. I think it was Saving Private Ryan, actually, whenever I was allowed to see it because it was a war film. Now you see it gratuitously all over the place. And I know everyone complains about these things later on, but it really is at a point where we are spiraling that drain really quickly. And I do worry, listen, I'm an adult, I can handle it, and I don't think that it inspires school shootings, but I do worry about my future kids. If, my wife and I said we can only ever watch anything in our bedroom away from them first to make sure that it's okay.
Well, yeah, not
it's
everything
so bad.
in life is subjective. Like we have empirical data on a lot of things that determine success and the well-being of a culture, if it's full of filth and bad Westworld episodes that
talk about bleak Westworld. But here's the thing.
It's not the Yanni Laurel thing. Like it's not just a matter of opinion.
Right.
How you see something. Like we have data. We have information.
It's not good to expose children to these things young.
Yeah.
It's not good to expose children to things that are hypersexualized, hyper-violent. But as long as they don't say the bad words.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, well, you didn't say the naughty word, so that's okay. Which always bothered me, the hypocrisy that you would get off. And that was the easiest thing for Christians to check on the box, right? Was I didn't say the naughty words. Like, well, hold on a second. What about your actions? Yeah. And this makes sense why, obviously, the kill. But one thing I do like about the Versace thing, though, we're kind of past that's a negative gay stereotype, right? It used to be Will and Grace. Once they got the domestic rights, now it's like, okay, yeah, Versace. It's just a bunch of gay people having sex, getting AIDS, snorting coke in clubs, because that's what happened in Miami. You want us to lie about it? No, thank you. I'm glad that you guys made that, because now we can do the sketches we want to do. So it is well done. It's a well-done show. I'm not taking that away from it. But I am concerned when I watch these things, and I don't know the kind of world that my kids are going to be raised with. And I think that everyone out there, even if you're a secularist, I don't care what religion you are, you have to look at this and go like, gosh, that's pretty rough. I don't know if I want this dancing across the screen when my kids are raised. But it's about words versus actions with the left. I highly doubt the people from the far right are the ones creating the killing of Versace. Just in case you were wondering. I don't think they'd be allowed to make
far right mafia.
Yes, if they pitched it and they happen to have a voting record of ever voting for a Republican senator, like, nope, we're not allowing you an EP credit on this. There's no way we're getting away with that one.
We work by killing people off and denying blacks the vote.
Yes.
South.
And busing people in by giving them free sandwiches. And it also brought me to this other point. We kind of were talking about this today. So talking about actions. Owen Benjamin, Lauren Southern, Nigel Farage. What do they all have in common? Guess in this show.
Really good looking.
They're all good-looking people. Yeah, Nigel Farage has that sort of rustic charm. Yeah. I can see it. Mm-hmm. I can see it. Sometimes I feel attracted. And the guy is...
Picture.
Talk about being an alpha in the room. When the guy just walks in the room, it's like my body is almost availing itself. Like, what is happening? This guy is just... I'm straight. But Lauren Southern, banned from England, the UK. Mm-hmm. Owen Benjamin, banned from Twitter. Banned from Pittsburgh, apparently. Not a bad place to be banned from. Nigel Farage. Obviously, they tried to ban him. I don't know if it was Canada. They've tried to ban him, and he's persona non grata on the media. All of these people have faced serious, severe discrimination, have faced serious backlash, have taken some serious hits, some dents for their views. And again, if we're talking about, you think that maybe these people are just profane, you think that maybe they're just wrong, they're horrible human beings. Okay, but then I ask you, is it worse than what they express? Is it anything worse than what you'd see on Westworld? Is anything worse than you would see in The Killing of Versace? Is it anything worse than you see Don Lemon, dead Johnny Mathis, expressing that night on the news? I would say no. Lauren and Nigel certainly aren't profane people. Owen, if you go see a show and it's a late show and he's had a couple blue moons, he can go around the bend a little bit, but it's not mean-spirited. The point is, again, they have the wrong opinion. So we're in an age with culture where... First off, we've eliminated actions, right? Your actions don't define. It's the words that you use, and that's one thing. And that's why words keep being taken away. We just retroactively had an old meme from Facebook. Did you see this? Removed.
No.
It was 2.5 years old.
Which one?
It had the word tranny. in it. Hopefully they don't comb through our video catalog. They said it's now retroactively a violation of our hate speech laws. And by the way, it wasn't even anti-transgender at this point. It was a harmless punchline.
Imagine if Facebook went back to like the first century, like their machines of filtering and going back and retroactively pulling things would just explode.
You know what? If Facebook could just go back to MySpace or Friendster.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. These words
Not that
keep
long
changing,
ago.
but you know what? Actions, people's hearts, people's intents, those don't change. And that's pretty easy to see. And that's one thing I would say to people out there. If you look, you have to determine what matters to you. Like you said, cultures aren't all equal. No. Look at Japan. Very industrious. They do really well. But tiny plummeting Japanese bodies from every skyscraper.
Yeah, it's like
highest suicide rate.
Chinese Mary Poppins.
That is not just karate. Whole life, Japan. Okay? You got to get your life in balance. The work is good, okay? You give us some cool technology, but it's no good to you if you're falling out a window by the time you're 52 years old. So there is a difference. You can look at it statistically. And there is a difference in how people live their lives, the culture that you have within your own family. Before you get to, this is why family matters, the nuclear family. Mom, dad, kids, right? If you're a kid, you want a daddy, you want a mommy in the house, you want them still together. That is far more important than putting some more money into a local public school that's failing anyway. It determines your level of success. So before we get to federal government, before we get to state government, before we get to municipal government, it is governed by yourself. As for you in your house.
Socialism is like that claw machine where you think you just put one more dollar in, you're going to get it.
Right, exactly.
Just one more dollar.
And think about this for a second. Think about how you live your life. Think about the difference between your culture, the culture between your house and your neighbor's house, the culture between, Owen Benjamin, Lauren, Nigel Farage's house. Why do you think it is that they are getting knocked so much? Now, if you think it's just because they're asses, if you think it's just because they have the wrong opinions, and so they rightfully should be banned from all the places where other people who express equally controversial opinions, certainly more hateful opinions, are allowed. If you think it's just because of their opinions and you disagree with their opinions so you want to remove them, fine. There's no convincing you. I'm not going to fake anymore like we need to find common ground. We don't have common ground. Move along down the trail and go watch something else. But if you don't think that they deserve to be banned simply because of their opinions, why do you think they're getting banned? Why do you think they're taking so many hits? Why do you think a writer and an editor in a Pittsburgh paper doesn't want Owen to be able to perform there because of sold-out shows? Why do you think the media hates Nigel Farage? Why do you think Lauren Southern's not allowed in the UK? Why do you think Italy hates? Do you think it's because they are always wrong? Or do you think maybe it's because if you do something important, if you do something worthwhile, you're gonna have to take some shots? And that's one thing I know we've talked about this before, but I did get an email this week from someone, you probably know who you are, in a college, and this is nothing new, asking about what do I do if I'm in college and I don't want my teacher to? Here's the deal: if you want to pass, you want to get a good grade, keep it to yourself, okay? But it's also nearly impossible to do in 2018. If you express an opinion that is unpopular, if you stand for something at any point, and I don't even care if you stand for something with which we would agree, you're gonna take some shots. And if you live a life where you don't take any hits, if you live a life where you've never been banned, if you live a life where you've always been popular, if you live a life where everyone's always said, gee golly, man, he's a nice guy, and that's the first descriptor they use for you and the last descriptor, nothing wrong with being a nice guy, but if it's the only description that you're going to get, or woman, ask yourself why that is. Are you living a life of consequence? There's nothing wrong. Someone said a man will be measured by how many friends he has. Sometimes you're measured by how many enemies you have as well. Because I'll tell you this, I've had people in my life, we're talking about a culture, there are cultures that are easier. We talk about leisure cultures, absolutely, a lot of Europe, Greece, hint, hint. There are cultures that are harder. But you can't just have easy versus hard. You can't just have nice versus mean, good words versus bad, naughty words, as opposed to actions. You do have to, is it a fruitful culture? And is your home, as for you in your house, what are you serving? Is it a fruitful, because if it's a fruitful culture, it's never gonna be easy. If you want to have kids who can be raised in this world that we're a little bit worried about, and you want them to end up not being sociopaths, guess what? They're going to have to take some licks, and so are you. If you want to be successful, if you want to be recognized for anything more than being milquetoast, a guy who you can get along with at a party, or a girl, you're going to have to take some shots. And if you aren't, there's a strong chance, if all you're doing, by the way, is fighting the whole world at every single point, there's a good chance you're an asshole, absolutely. But if you never find yourself in controversy, if you never find yourself getting some bumps and bruises along the way, there's a strong chance that you might be living a life that is completely inconsequential. And that's no way to be, son. So to the guy who wrote to me about college, you gotta make a choice. You wanna pass? Keep it to yourself. But at some point, you're gonna have to make a decision. And if you're getting hit, it means you're out there with the puck. It means you're out there taking some risks, and that's okay. That's not always a bad thing. We'll talk to you next week. Speaking of getting hit, Ralph Macchio, he'll be there. Ooh, he got hit.
It only takes